Welcome to Opinion Havers, a movie podcast for Jerry. I'm Cody.
And I'm Tyler.
Tyler, what did we watch?
We watched The Lord of the Rings.
Yes, we did. May you be more specific.
Oh, specifically the 1978 animated Lord of the Rings. You know, the one that's
Yes.
2/3 of the story, and then they're like, and the rest of it happened.
Spoilers. It's Ralph Brudnicki, I don't know his name. He's the guy that made the X-rated cartoon. They phoned him up. Oh yeah, it's called Fritz the Cat or something like that. Is in the early 70s. Anyway, they phoned him up, gave him a shot at it, and this is what happened. An animated Lord of the Rings, and I have so much to tell you about it. I went deep. This may be the deepest I've ever gone down the rabbit hole to find out what on earth this movie was that we watched. And it happened this episode. And I'm excited to tell you about it. Don't do it. Don't do I did the research for you, all right? I see your face. I see you discovering the horrors. You've looked into the eyes of Cthulhu, and now madness is your life, all right? That's what's happened.
I mean, it was Fritz
Tyler?
the Cat that I went down. Just
Did
Googled.
you see the images? Just to take off that safe search.
I mean, it's
Google
just the
Fritz
poster.
the Cat, uncensored, and then just see what happens. See what viruses invade your brain. That's what you do. That's the move. All right. I'll just give you my rundown, all right? The Lord of the Rings is a classic tale of an evil ring and a young halfling's quest to destroy it by teaming up with the Fellowship of Wizards, Men, and Elves in the fate for a land called Middle-earth. That's what this movie's about. And let me tell you, it almost tells you what happens at the end. And that's probably the best part about it. Tyler, I see you. I want to hear your thoughts. What's your first impression of this rendition of one of your favorites?
They had me in the first half, I'm not gonna lie. You know? I was in for it in the beginning, and then I was just like, this is not good, and it's bad. And that's about when I texted you was when the turn happened, which I'd say is about 20 minutes in the movie. Maybe. When I went from like, oh yeah, I'm into this. It's like a super nerds version of Lord of the Rings. And then I was like, oh, it's what is happening right now? This is all this is everything wrong. This is everything. No.
Your exact text was, so the Lord of the Rings movie isn't good, right? That's when you texted me.
Yeah.
I tell you what, I started this movie. It was an evening bedtime watch. We were in bed watching. We're like, we'll just start it. We'll watch 30 minutes and then we'll finish it tomorrow. And it grabbed me, and I was like, I have to know what else is going to happen. I can't stop. And so I stayed up way too late, finished the movie. Then I stayed up for another 40 minutes researching the movie, scrawling notes on my bedside, like, what is this? So that's where I'm at. Here's what I will say.
Yeah.
First impression, this movie has so much potential. Like, there are a lot of things where I'm like, you know what? That was a cool choice. This was a good idea. This has a cool vibe. And then there's also parts of this movie that are hot garbage. And they're just straight bad. And that's what's maddening about it. Like, you can see, like, oh, this guy's good at animating things. You know? And then you're like, oh, that was an interesting way to pick that effect. That has a cool vibe. Interesting lighting. It's kind of psychedelic almost. At times it reminded me of Mandy, where I was like, this is dark and weird, and I like it. And then the rest of the time I was like, it's bad. I can't. And then it ended early, and I was like, well, this is upsetting. Yeah. So that's where I'm at. I would not recommend this movie unless you were on drugs. And then I think it'd be awesome. I think it would be really awesome if you were on drugs.
Oh, yeah. Here's the thing, Cody. I bought the movie. And do I regret it? No, Cody, because I'm watching this thing again. Are you kidding me? I'm going back into the rabbit hole on this one again. But it was just like, whatever. I'll buy it. It's fine. Thinking it's probably going to be good. And I like Lord of the Rings. It's not good.
We have so much to talk about, and I'm ready for it. Is there any more preambles or anything else we need to talk about before we dive deep? You can't even spoil this movie, like, because it doesn't end.
It doesn't end. You're right. It's just like, yeah,
It would be like
that's
if,
the end of
it
it.
would be like if they didn't make the second half of Dune, you know? If they did the Denis Villeneuve, like, all right, Dune Part 1, great. Let's just never finish that and just call it Dune.
Yeah, but no, Cody. Here's the thing. That's not right. It would be like if you watched. I gotta think of a different movie.
Monty Python and the Holy Grail, except it was a serious movie, not a comedy.
So yeah, it'd be like if they made Monty Python and the Holy Grail, and then they did the rabbit, and then they wheeled the rabbit up to the gates. All right, and then they're like. And then their story continued, and they got to the castle, and they were all arrested by Scotland Yard, and thus the story ended. And it's like, what? What?
Yeah,
It makes no
it's a
sense.
bad one. It's a bad one, and I need to get into it.
Okay,
Are you ready?
Cody, climb atop Guahir, the great eagle, with me. Climb atop Guahir and fly into Spoilerton, Hobbit Towns, USA, of Spoilerville, USA.
Let me ask you this question. We're
Yes.
here in Spoilersville, spoiler territory.
Yes.
Do you want to go first? Or you want me to go first? Do you want to rant first? Or
I
want me
need you to
rant
go first, Cody. I need it. I need you to do your stuff. I need you to feel it. I need you to share your rage with me as I misspell clock and pull up the timer that you know I'm going to ignore, Cody. Gosh, here's the thing with this timer, okay? It's like I updated. I'm on Windows 11. Spoilers for everybody. If you just pull up the clock, it pulls up focus session, and it's like, you want 15 minutes of uninterrupted focus. And I'm like, I have focus
what?
assist on. So it's a whole thing.
that doesn't make no sense.
I want a timer. That's why I typed in timer and pulled up timer.
Yeah.
All right. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is our first fan requested episode in a long time. The person who did it, look, I thought, I should ask this person if they mind if I call him out in the podcast. And then I decided, nope, I'm going to call him out by name right now. No permissions asked. His name is Jerry. He listens to the podcast. He asked me, look, he slid in my DMs. We've had people tweet at us requesting movies, and we've done it. We've had people email us, which is weird. And he's our first DM slider, okay? He slid in. And I was like, I'll be happy to do it. And I've heard about this movie, and I knew about the animator, and I knew he did an X-rated cartoon. And I was like, he's well regarded as someone who's good at animating things. So I was like, you know what? It's a cult favorite. Some people enjoy it. I'm excited to watch it. I started it, and I was like, oh no, this has gone terribly wrong. I ran into Jerry, okay? In real life, IRL, I ran into Jerry in between when he DM'd us and when we saw the movie, and he was like, oh, actually, I thought it'd be funny to hear you talk about the movie because that movie sucks. And I watched it for life. I was like, how dare you? All right, Jerry, you come in here, you slide into our DMs, and you say, watch this movie that I know is bad and that I don't like because I want you to suffer. This is what's wrong with the youth today, all right? With the children's. They just want other people to suffer because they're suffering, all right? Jerry, how dare you? Anyway, like I said, there's a lot about this movie I liked. The very first thing Bailey said when this movie started, not animated, doesn't count. Because the opening sequence is just like live action things happening, unfolding, telling stories. It's like, you know what? She has a point, all right? Here's the thing. This has a lot of the same beats as the movies, the beloved Peter Jackson movies, which is interesting. For example, there's the Proudfoot guy, where they're like Proudfoots, he's like Proud Feet. Here's the thing. He says that, it's not in the book, I guess, is what I read. And then it is in this movie. And then it's Peter Jackson's movie. Like, it must be in the book. It's not. And at one point, someone says Peter Jackson denied having seen this movie and having lifted it from this movie. I've also seen at other times where he's like, no, yeah, I love that movie. It wasn't everything could, but it was cool. There was a lot of cool, I'm like, yeah, obviously, like, no one makes up the same weird, different, you know what? It's weird. This movie has a weird history, and I don't understand it. Most of my notes are illegible because I wrote them in the dark on my bedside. I need you to understand this, and I'm going to need your help. This movie, look, why was the Wraith guy gimpy? All right? When they're being stalked by the Wraith guy, which is another shot that Peter Jackson kind of lifted from this, why is he decrepit? and he can ride a horse just fine. He looks like he has great posture riding that horse. Then he gets on the ground and he's like, you know what? I'm going to slink like a little snake. And I did not understand that. And I need you to explain me why. Yes. Here's the thing about the hobbits. I know they have rough, rugged, and hairy feet because they don't use shoes and they have big, hairy feet. Now, that does not excuse their calves, all right? Their calves and feet are, I would describe, aggressively beefy, all right? You look at the hobbits and you're like, these hobbits, I don't know how you work out your foot to make it bigger. I know you can do calf raises, right? And beef up your calves. What workout are they doing? What weights are they lifting to make their foot muscles bigger? You explain that to me right now. Are they doing toe curls? Is that a thing? You lift weights, right? You know how to lift weights. You've done it. You've talked about it. I need someone to explain that to me. This movie ends, okay? This movie ends. It covers the events of the first 2 books roughly, and then it says, yeah, then Aragorn and his friends fought off the forces of evil. Good job. End of movie. That's what he says. And it makes no darn sense at all. And I learned it was a whole thing. It's a whole studio thing. The director, animator guy was like, I just don't think I can do it. I didn't like having to work with the studio and the constraints, and it was too much of a time crunch and blah, blah, blah. It's like, I'm just not going to do it. My thing is, why you got to phone in the wrong ending? Why couldn't you have said, oh, there's more to the story? You could have just said nothing, been like, well, in the movie, people will get that we didn't finish it. Instead, they phoned in a voiceover line super loud. Like, they didn't have time to write it. They were like, hey, can you just make up something right now? We have to record this in the next 3 seconds. Can you just say something about how the movie ended and everything's fine? And that's what happened. And that's what blows my mind most of all. I have more to say about the history of this movie. Here's the last thing I'll say in my rant. There's a lot of stuff they did in this movie where they had live actors animate it. They recorded live actors, then they just animated over that. And it makes for some of the coolest shots, like mainly the orcs, because they're like pig people and it's black and there's crazy colors in the background. It reminded me of Mandy. I was like, this is awesome and creepy and weird, and I love it. And that was the best part of the movie, and that's it.
Cody, I'm going to have to cut you off there. You can't keep going. Cody, stop. Stop it, Cody. All right, here we go. Tell me, you ready for this, Cody? You're ready for my rebut. I'm about to rebut you so hard.
Do it.
All right, Cody, here's the thing about these ring wraiths, all right? This is what I like. I was like, that ring wraith, he slithered off that horse, and I was like, oh, you make him crawl on the ground like he does in the books. You make him crawl and be super creepy. He's so creepy when you read that part in the books. It's like you got to stop, come back later. You can't just read it all at once. Because it's like, they like skitter. They describe them as skittering around, like animals. Like, they don't just walk like normal dudes. Peter Jackson, he's out here being like, we'll make them walk instead of creepy. Whatever Fritz the cat dude, he was just like, you know what? We'll make them just kind of like shuffle. And I'm like, no, man. I want them to pop off that thing and then snap down and have like their arms way too far wide to the side and their elbows like a foot and a half behind them, and then they're just kind of like, you know, skittering around. All right, that's what I want, because that's what they do. Also, I'll give Peter Jackson this, okay? That scene in the books where the thing is Tolkien, he describes it exactly that way. So that part at least, I'll give him credit. He might, he can't have lifted that because they both lifted it from Tolkien's description of the scene, where it's like, they're like, get off the road. They hide under a log that's right off the road. Here's the thing. This dude didn't do the hand going on the log, which happens in the book. Which Tiffany wanted the hand on the log. I was like, it's fine. This dude, he's shuffling. He's super creepy. Here's the thing, Cody. Nobody talks about the fact the horses are how they see. They don't have bodies yet, Cody, because Sauron, he's not powerful enough. They're not powerful enough. Cody can't give them bodies yet, so they can't see the real world. They can just see the wraith world. So the horses, they're there to suss out what's going on. So that's why it's like, can't put the ring on, because then they can see you. You could stand right in front of these fools without the ring on, and they can't even see you. They can just kind of lick you a little bit, all right? Here's the thing. These hobbit calves, I got nothing for you, Cody. I got nothing for the hobbit calves. I wrote it down, but I got nothing for you. The phoned in ending, Cody... They don't just phone it in. They phone it in to the max. They're like, Yes, and then it continues, and the Hobbit go. They went and they did the thing. That's basically what the guy says. He's like, they did the thing, and I'm like, what thing did they do? You're not even gonna say they destroyed the ring. You're gonna be like, the battle continues, and the hobbits continued, and the thing happened. Specify the ending at least, man. Don't just phone it in so hard that it's vague on what the ending is. You're gonna include Aragorn explaining who freaking Beren and Luthien are, but you're not gonna give the ending of the movie. Okay, you might as well have put Tom Bombadil in it if you're gonna get this BS with what you keep in, what you don't. Here's what I'm mad about: they keep all this weird side stuff with them. They even keep Bill the pony. Also, he insinuated that Bill got killed. Bill did not get killed. I'm about to spoil the books for everybody. Bill survives. Bill is a monster, all right? He's a beast. He goes back and he is just, they show back up in the Shire and Bill's just chilling, munching on some grass like, what's up? I've been here the whole time. I went off on my own journey and destroyed my own Dark Lord. What did you guys do with your lives? All right, here's that, and it's just like, you can't have Bill get murked by the Watcher in the water. All right. Here's the thing, they go. I said to Tiffany, I'm about to get whiplash from these scene changes, and she's like, I know what you're talking about. All right, it jumps so aggressively from Gandalf being like dead, and then they're like, we gotta go to the forest. It's where the elves are, and then they're like, oh no, can't do it. And I'm like, oh, they're about to get into the whole thing where it's like, some of them are like, no, they're evil. We can't go see these elves. And then the elves, obviously, Legolas, he's all like, yeah, it's fine. The elves, they're cool guys. And then I'm like, oh, they're about to make a whole big thing about. Nope, they're there. They're in front of Galadriel, and it's instant. It's like, I refuse to go, and they're there. And I'm like, what the F was that? Did you just cut out 30 minutes of the movie just so brutally like that? Anyway, here's the thing. Wind it back for a second. When Frodo, he's stupid. He puts on the ring. I've got the ring. I got the ring right here, Cody. It's my wedding ring. My ring is the one ring. All right? I put it on. Frodo, he's there. He's shaking. All right? He's shaking so much he puts it on like a fool. All right? Now they see him. He gets stabbed like a stupid idiot. Should have given Bilbo the ring. That was their first mistake.
All right, Tyler. Look, your takes are too hot. I have to stop you right there. I'm so glad you brought up Bill, because I was like, they just killed Bill? Like, right there. It was cruel. I mean, it wasn't even you're just like, really? You're just going to be like, the pony died? Oh, it was, okay. Look.
But Cody, no. It's even before this Bill thing, right? They show up, right? He puts the ring on, gets stabbed. They're like, gotta get him there. And then this elf shows up, and I'm like, oh, sweet. They're of course they're not going to be like, oh, it's what's-her-face that nobody cares about from the Lord of the Rings movies. It's going to be the real guy from the books. You know who it is. Let's say it together. 1, 2, 3. Glorfindel, all right? Glorfindel, the elf lord. He shows up and saves them. And then he shows up, and they're like, Legolas. I'm like, Legolas isn't even from Rivendell. You freaking idiots. I'm so mad. I'm like, you can't you can't do this whole super nerd take on the books for the whole boring section in the Shire and then be like, oh, Legolas saved him. Also, Legolas just kind of stuck him on his horse, said some weird stuff, then nothing happened for 5 minutes. Then Frodo rode the horse away. I'm like, no, that's none of this how it happened.
That's another thing that thing is lifted. The horse water. When the river washes over the wraiths, in the books, is it supposed to be horses? Or is that just the choice they made and then Peter Jackson lifted that as well? Because I thought from the making of the trilogy, they mentioned that it was like we started to do a choice of it. But it wasn't necessarily in books. Like, it was our interpretation.
I think there's horses, but there's other stuff too, and that they just kind of stuck with the horses. Like it's just the water taking them. But the big thing too is the water takes the horses, not the wraiths. And the wraiths are like, well, we're boned because we can't. Like literally, they'll walk into trees and crap, like because they can't see where they're going.
They're rider. They need something to ride.
Yeah. They need something
So here's
to
my
tell
thing.
them where stuff is.
You mentioned Legolas, all right? How are they
looks
gonna
like a
do him
rat.
so dirty as to turn his eyes to like a 70-degree angle? What was that?
He looked like a rat, didn't he? I wouldn't trust him either.
Yes, it was like it's one of those things you're like, I don't know what they're going for, like, because elves are supposed to be like elegant, right?
Yeah. And he's like,
And he looked like a freak of nature. Like I was like, no, dude, this is a bad look. Like it was awful.
yeah, no, it was not.
bad.
It's yeah, it was bad.
Here's my other thing about this one.
Give it to me.
They turned Sam into just a dunce. Like he's
It's so
an idiot the whole time. He's like, oh, I don't know. I'm saying like he's a bumbling fool. Where I'm like, you are not gonna help anybody on this journey. You are dead weight, and you need to stay behind. There is no way you're helping anybody out. It was so bad.
Oh,
Like
it's
the
just-
whole time.
It is like he only has like 6 teeth, and it's like he's like, oh, Mr. Frodo, and it's like, no, Sam, shut up.
I forgot about the teeth. Thank you for reminding me. Oh, he had the look of just a fool. And he just bumbles throughout the whole thing. Oh man, someone opened their robes at somebody. I think it was during the Gandalf Saruman fight. Do you remember that? Yeah. They like whip their robes. Everyone like, this is the wizard fight. It's just them
So
clashing
bad.
each other.
Because
It was
that is
weird.
something. So him being like, I am Saruman of many colors, and it being like, I'm the Rainbow Wizard. That's from the books, but it's like, don't ever put that in a movie. Like I think that, like I could just imagine like the editor looking at Tolkien being like, do you really want to leave in this Saruman of many color, the Rainbow Wizard part? Because that's a little much, don't you think? And him being like, no, it's necessary.
It would have been great if just like a pride parade of orcs like marched through the scene when he says that, you know?
Just like-
they should have just gone all in on the rainbow thing. Here's the other thing. This is fascinating. Saruman. Did you notice throughout the movie that they switched his name between Saruman and Aruman?
Yes, and it drove me nuts.
They did it because they were like, look, audiences are dumb and no one's gonna know that you're saying Sauron and Saruman. No one can tell the difference between those. So instead of voicing over all of the times and calling him Aruman, let's keep 2 or 3 times of calling him Saruman, and then we'll call him Aruman from then on out. Like, wait,
It's
you
worse
made it
in
more
every way.
confusing by giving him a different name. Now there's 3 names instead of 2 names. But yeah, it was like, I think it was like the studio that was like, hey, you have to change this. I don't know, man. It was wild. You know, so I did discover one part of the animation techniques, like almost everything in the movie, they shot in person. Like they did live action shooting, and then they screened over it and did the animation.
The
But then there's
rotoscope.
some shots. Yeah, that's the one. So it's just interesting because that was part of the reason the movie is such a time crunch. Is that the director was like, all right, I've got to go here to the UK. We're going to do voiceover acting. Got it. Now I'm going to go to LA, and now we're going to shoot the actors doing it. Now I got to go to my animation studio and animate it. And so it's like he was doing everything 3 times essentially. So kind of a wild process. But then there are some shots where like, oh no, it's just like a fully animated thing. They just use it as a template. Then there's other ones where like, no, that's just a dude, and you just put weird lighting on it and like made it look different.
Yeah.
And the worst one I thought, because the orcs for me kind of work, because like it is really eerie and the lighting's so crazy that I'm like, oh, I get it, like it's putting out a vibe. But then when they're at the Prancing Pony Inn,
Yeah.
that was
It's
like
just
Uncanny
people.
Valley to the max. We're like, this looks weird. Like it's neither animation nor just people because there's animated elements, but not everyone is. You're like, this is tripping me out a little bit.
Yeah, like that's the part when I texted you, I think, because that was like the first part. Because I
That's
kept
just the
being like,
people.
is that people or is that what's happening
Yeah.
here?
That was
it's just like
definitely the first shot
them
where I was
dancing.
like,
I said, that's just
This is
people.
wild.
It's not even
Man,
animated.
let's talk about Strider here for a minute. Here's another scene that he lifted when the riders stab the pillows. and they're in the different room. That was also from this one, where it's like,
But
yeah,
they
it's shot
didn't
exactly
stab
the way.
it. They slashed at it, Cody. They went.
Oh right, I forgot. It was like people whacking a bedsheet with a baseball bat,
Yeah.
basically.
I did.
Here's
like,
the thing about
Here's the thing about the creepy thing. The creepy wraiths, though. When they stood up straight, I was like, "This is creepy," and this is like why they're supposed to be. They're like described as like slithering around and skittering around. They like crawl and they go like "Wah!" to talk to each other because they can't talk.
Yeah. Strider, we meet him at the inn.
Yeah.
Strider has thighs for days. Too much thighs, I would say. Like, he's very much a middle-aged guy from the 80s who's like, heyday was the 80s and is not giving up on the short shorts. Like, everyone else is wearing pants. It's 40 degrees out, but he's like, no, I'm sticking with the short shorts. Like, this is what I'm doing. I'm all about these here. I'm going all legs.
When they were in their room, you know, and Strider was like giving his little speech, Tiffany was like, "Please tell me he's wearing like skin-colored pants or something." I was like, "No, you can see his knee. He's not wearing pants. He's going full."
And he is like
short
very much an
tunic.
olive-skinned tan boy. Like, yeah.
He looks like
He's going-
I told you he looks like Apache Chief. Anybody doesn't know, go look up Super Friends Apache Chief. I'm sitting there expecting this guy to hit me with the Ine chalk at any minute. Okay, it just grow to 30 feet tall. That's what I kept wanting to happen. That's what I kept thinking was gonna happen. But no, he just ran around without pants on the whole time.
Yeah, and I don't know. I know I already complained about Sam being a dunce, but like, is it just me or are they like hardcore shipping the Sam Frodo relationship? Like they were like, no, these guys are doing it later, like on the DL. Like that's why they go off on like that's the vibe I got. Where I was like, this is getting weird. It got weird. Am I wrong?
I mean, it does. It's one of those things where it's like the way the guys from the early 1900s would treat each other, and you look at it now today, you're like, oh, so you guys were all gay, every single human being in the early 1900s. You don't look at another man and be like, oh my lovely Sam, who I love so much, Sam, my love. My precious, my beautiful, supple, soft Sam, while you're like slowly rubbing his bare thigh, and you're like, Sam, my love, and it's like, oh gosh, why?
It's a different time.
It's
My
a
favorite
different
quote
time.
from 30 Rock is like, it's a different time back then. If you did something private with a man in the shower, it wasn't considered gay. Just two men celebrating each other's strengths. You know, you're like, oh, okay.
Exactly. That's really what it is.
All right. I have a bone to pick, and maybe you will too. As a man of Scandinavian descent, maybe you can help me on this one.
Okay.
Is it fjord or ford? Because I could have swore it was called a fjord.
It's definitely fjord.
Am I wrong?
You
Because they
ford a
say
river,
ford. What?
So a fjord is like a harbor, like a bay, but a river, like a shallow part of a river that you can go across, that's a ford. You ford the river.
Oh, okay. So it's a different terminology.
Yeah.
Also related to rivers.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. I was like, Matt, I was like, why you gotta do me like that? Okay. So they have the scene where Frodo reunites with Bilbo in Rivendell, and Bilbo's like, give me that ring, bro. Here's my favorite part about their version of the scene, is that Frodo was about to rock Bilbo's dome. Like, he was like, already had the sword out. He was like, here I go. I'm about to kill my uncle, I guess. I loved it. It made me so happy.
I did like the fact that, Frodo was ready to kill Bilbo at a second's notice. But what I did like was, so I'm pretty sure in the books, it is Bilbo like looks at it and then he's like, put it away. I don't want it. You know, I'm sorry I've doomed you to this thing, you know, and then, but in Peter Jackson's version, he's like, I will kill you for that ring right now, Frodo, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
Man.
here's the other thing. Since we're talking about Bilbo, does he like, what's that movie, Crank or whatever, where he's got like a car battery, he got to keep going or else his heart stops, you know?
Yeah.
Is he that? That's why his arms are always swinging. Is he got to keep his arms swinging, or else that's how he pumps his heart?
Who was that?
Bilbo.
Maybe.
Because he never stops.
I feel like at the beginning of the movie, they're like,
arms.
we gotta have all the extra motions. Once again, these were taped performances that they just animated over. So whatever the actor chose to do on the day, and we've already established they were on a time crunch. So whatever the actor chose on the day, that is what they were animating. All right. Yeah. That's how it works.
But Bilbo, he's swinging his arms. He's going, yep, well, yep. Yep. And it's like, Bilbo, shut up. All right, we're moving on to the next scene.
Oh yeah. Was it me, or were they just like a lot more directly Gandalf mean to Pippin? Like, because in the trilogy movies, it's like, oh, Pippin, jokes around too much or is a little careless. In this one, Pippin's like, oh, I stepped on a rock, and Gandalf's like, shut up, you idiot. I hate you.
Yeah, I definitely.
Like, Pippin didn't do anything, and then I was just like, you know what? You need to die.
It is more like the books, to be fair. So it's, but yeah, it is much more like that.
I saw this a couple weeks ago. You saw it more recently. They pronounced Minas Tirith, and it made me upset. Like, they did it so wrong. Do you remember how they said it? Because I can't remember.
Minus
Tirith. It's like, I get. Now that I've had some distance from it, I guess it's not that bad, but
I don't even think they said Tirith normal though. I think it was like minus Tirth or something like that. And it's up.
Man.
They were so inconsistent with how they pronounced everything, and it's like, come on. It'd be like if I went to see Dune and they were like, oh, the when they like people. No, here's what it is like. It's like when I've listened to all the other podcasts that review Dune, and they're like, oh yeah, the Harkonians and the Atreides and the Atreides and the Tur and they got the Feynmans that are on the planet Arachnoids, and it's like everything you're saying is wrong. Everything is wrong, and it's so wrong.
It's like I've seen 13 episodes of Game of Thrones. I mispronounce stuff all the time. People get so mad at me.
But like what are the hit me with the what's the main house that you remember though? Hit me with it. From Game of Thrones.
Lannister?
Go. Lannister.
Lannister.
Not Stark. Lancaster? Right? Not Stank?
No. Lancaster. No, I know that much. And then there's Aquaman's people. They're the
Drogo's his name. I don't remember their name. I watched the entire show. They're the Horde. Okay. That's all I know. They're the Huns, whatever.
I don't know who it was, but I'm gonna guess it was Gandalf. But it also could have been the king of Rohan, just like petting his beard. Do you remember that?
Oh yeah, Wormtongue was just like petting his beard while he was whispering in his ear, and it's like, oh gosh, what are you? This is elder abuse. What are you doing, man?
I didn't know you could molest a beard, but I guess you can. That's what we learned today.
If somebody's petting my beard like that when I'm old, I don't want that person. If it's not like my wife, I don't want that person around me anymore. All right.
Oh, man. And what I realized towards the end of the movie is like, you know what? If I didn't already know the plot of Lord of the Rings, I would be overwhelmed this whole time because they're pushing the pace. Like the first 20 minutes, you're like, all right, they did the intro, so I'm doing okay. And then it just like accelerates because you can tell like the amount of lore they have to get through, and the deadline, the 2 hour, the runtime is like running out. And like I kept looking like they're not going to do it. They're not going to finish this movie. I didn't know that they weren't going to. I was like, it's 2 hours in. We're doing Helm's Deep. We're done for. And then sure enough, they didn't make the timeline. But yeah, I was like, they have so much plot to get through. And like, they didn't streamline it enough. Like you said, they kept going deep in certain lore things. I'm like, man, you could have just skipped out on Saruman or something. I don't know. You had to do something. Like you had a Lady Galadriel maybe could have been not happened since we didn't even go there, like, yeah, there was so much. I was like, we gotta pull some of this if we're gonna stick to the 2 hour. Peter Jackson did the whole thing. Yeah. Well, Peter Jackson did the first 2 movies in 6 hours, right? And this guy did it in 2 hours. It's quick. Yeah,
it was too quick. For sure. I mean, the battle was like like we're there and it's battle and it's over and now we're charging and then we're like Gandalf, and then Gandalf is there and he brought all 7 of the Riders of Rohan with him. And I was like, what the heck? How they had like an unstoppable horde of guys with him in the Peter Jackson movie. This one he's like, don't worry guys, I got Aomer and his buddies that went out. I'm like, there's not
They were
enough.
having a bachelor party, so I nabbed them, and we're here now. Don't worry. Man.
Yeah, it's wild, you know? Because and in the book, obviously, here's my biggest issue with it is in the books, there is so much more going on. Like, it's so much more realistic in how it treats everything. And as far as like, it is very much like the Game of Thrones type saga, you know? Like,
Yeah.
where there's just way too much political BS going on in the background. But they just got so deep. They're like, okay, we're going to portray the Shire right. And we're going to do this right. And then they're like, oh, shoot, that took 45 minutes of a 2-hour movie. We got to move this along. You know, we're supposed to get to Mount Doom in 2 hours. We're not getting to Mount Doom. It took me by surprise. I was like, it must just feel like it's been 2 hours. And then it ended, and I was just like, what? There's no way they ended it there. That's the worst spot to end it.
Mm-hmm. The making of this movie is wild, as you can imagine. And I've shared some of the history with you on it. Like even them getting the script was kind of wild because someone had the rights to it, and then like it came up time where they're like, "Oh, hey, you don't have the rights to make the movie anymore." And Ralph, I'm gonna get his name wrong. Brusnicki. I actually have it here. So
Ralph Fiennes. Ralph Macchio.
Where'd it go?
Ralph Bakshi.
Cast and crew thing.
Bakshi.
Ralph Bakshi. Yeah, he had like a friend who was a producer who's like, look, I think you should jump on the rights to this movie and I can make it for you on the cheap. Basically was the pitch. Like, I can do it for you. And so it bounced around to a few people, but he convinced someone to snatch up the rights for cheap and like, yeah, I'll make it for you for cheap. You know, it's one of those scripts where like, they're like, yeah, this is going to be too expensive and too hard to make, you know? So he kind of took the burden on himself, like, hey, a friend of mine will pick it up and I'll be able to do it. Then I think the guy who picked it up got fired or something. So then someone else took over so whoever the new executive producer of the studio was took over the rights and was like, oh, what's this project we're doing? Like, I guess you can keep doing, So like it kind of had less support. But he's like, all right, I'm still going to do it. Some crazy things happened because there are a lot of people that are big fans of Lord of the Rings, as you may know. One of them is the rock band Led Zeppelin, if you're familiar. They have several songs about Lord of the Rings. And they were like, we're all in. Let us be a part of this. They agreed to do the music. But then they're like, okay, yeah, we're on a bare bones budget. We cannot afford Led Zeppelin to come in and score a soundtrack for us and all that stuff, So they ended up not doing it. But they like really wanted to. I don't know what that note is. You need to tell me on some of these. Mick Jagger, also a big fan of Lord of the Rings, and was like, hey, dude, I want to be Frodo. Like, I think he strolled up in the building one day when they were animating. He's like, look, you should let me Frodo. First off, they're already halfway through the movie or whatever. But they were like, yeah, no, we've already like recorded all this stuff. Like, we can't do it. But yeah, they entertained the idea of Mick Jagger doing the book. Mick Jagger, who is the face of purity, to be Frodo. So that would have been kind of wild if that had happened.
They're like, do you want to be Gollum?
Right.
Gollum's
in this movie.
Yeah, they call him Smeagol way too much, and I'm like, gosh, you guys, you're missing the whole point of Gollum's character here.
Yeah, I thought the origin story of the ring was interesting, the Smeagol Deagle thing, because I didn't think I thought that wasn't spelled out very clearly in the books.
It is. It gives way too much detail on Smeagol, I'd say. Like, Smeagol was a freaking creep, even when he was normal.
Yeah.
He wasn't a normal, like, functioning member of society. Dude. It was like, they were hobbits, so they lived in the hobbit holes and stuff. And something he would do, so they're hobbit holes, You're familiar with the Hobbit hole. It's an underground house, okay? It's not a hole in the ground, okay? Right. This mofo would dig holes behind walls, like go behind somebody's house, dig a tunnel into their house to where the wall is like a couple inches thick to listen to what they would say so that he could blackmail them later. That was Smeagol when he was normal. Before he got the ring. Dude. Yeah.
Wow. It's wild.
So it'd be like, imagine if somebody like pulled your siding up and then stood outside with a stethoscope to listen to what you were talking about. Mm-hmm. You want that person around, don't you? You would refer to him as my love.
Because he's kind of a factotum. He's got, you know something, he's there. Tell you about it.
Yeah.
We all need that guy around.
Yeah, exactly.
Fun fact, Tim Burton this is his first Hollywood job. He helped animate this movie. So he was just like a low-level animator dude, but it was his first job in Hollywood, was on this one. Isn't that fun?
That's fun.
Also, here's what's especially weird about this movie. A year or two before this movie came out, there was a Hobbit movie animated. So there's an animated Hobbit movie. It was 1 or 2 hours long. It might have been a TV special. Then this movie comes out in 1978, and they didn't finish it. So then the people who made the Hobbit movie were like, sweet, let's do a Return to the King hour-long TV animated special. So there's a really weird trilogy of movies that came out in a 3 or 4 year period that's like, one studio made a Hobbit movie, it was like a kid's movie,
oh yeah,
animated.
Have you seen that one?
This dude made like I have in pieces because we have the Return of the King one, and we might have. I've definitely seen parts of the Return of the King. I may have seen that. I forget. I've seen it. Yeah. I had it on VHS. I've seen it at one point in my life.
I believe the one that did the Hobbit is the same studio that did like the Ewok animated movies.
That would make sense. So they make the Hobbit family film. Then this dude makes a much more adult version of Lord of the Rings, and then the previous studio was like, you know what? Let's just make a kiddie Return of the King, cap it all off. We're all different studios. So there's a trilogy that covers The Hobbit and all 3 Lord of the Rings books. They just weren't made by the same people, and they have very different vibes. It was also I think it was like a musical special, because now I'm actually recalling now that Return of the King, there's like a song. It's like, Frodo of the 9 Fingers and the Ring of Power. There's songs that do the whole thing. So, yeah. Okay. Weird.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. 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 Just speaking of weird studio things, did you notice that this is a United Artists movie? Which now, what do they make now? I'll answer your question. James Bond, and that's it.
Oh.
What else do they make? What? Nothing. But that's the studio. Whenever they refer to the studio, it's United Artists. Where they were like sitting there being like, well, we have James Bond, and you're not James Bond. What else do they make? Cody, nothing. They make nothing.
That's crazy.
Give me your status. Give me your status.
No, I had this fun fact, but it's too illegible because there's an Ian Holmes fact.
I mean, I have the trivia pulled up, and there's so few, but it is one of those rare things where there's only 39 trivia facts, and it really seems like each one of them is a true.
Yeah, there is a tie where Ian Holmes is in Alien, and John Hurt did the voice of Aragorn, who's also an Alien.
Yes.
One of those. I don't remember if that's what Ian Holmes was. Frodo.
Orson Welles was the narrator of the movie's theatrical trailer.
Oh, I forgot.
Hit you with that. Wow. Rotoscoped action scenes were filmed in Spain. Treebeard is the only character in the movie. That's what I'm saying.
They're all over the place. They were in England, they were in Spain, they were in LA, so they were all over.
Can we talk about Treebeard for a second? Those stubby little legs.
Yeah.
Could talk about him being there, and then he gives them like some weird speech, and then it cuts away, and then Gandalf's like, "Don't worry about them. and then you never see them again. So Treebeard, in my mind, in this universe, Treebeard killed them.
Does he just eat Merry and Pippin?
I mean, it must be, you know.
I mean, Bill got 8, Pippin got 8, Merry got 8.
Yeah, I mean, is this so John Hurt appeared in The Elephant Man? The makeup he had to wear for the title role was the inspired for the was the inspiration for the character design of the character Gothmog in The Lord of the Rings: Return of the King. That character is fittingly killed by Aragorn.
Oh, and Aragorn's voiced by Ian Holm. I don't know.
Did you get it? But that no Ian
different.
Holm. That's just John Hurt.
I don't understand.
John Hurt was an Elephant Man. So the Elephant Man.
Oh, and John Hurt
is
voices
the look
Aragorn.
That jacked up orc in the last movie. So it's a different. I thought I found the one you were looking for. It's different. I'll keep looking for this Ian Holm fact that you claim exists.
I read interviews with the director. Like I didn't just do the trivia. I did multiple reports and interviews and things about it. I burned through most of it. It is still wild to me that it exists. And like I said, there are points where I'm like, it's pretty good. This has some good stuff going for it.
I found the Ian Holm fact. Okay.
Tell me
Are you ready? John Hurt was the first actor from the Alien series to also appear in a Tolkien adaptation. His castmate Ian Holm played both Frodo and Bilbo, while Brad Dourif appeared in Alien Resurrection and The Lord of the Rings: The Two Towers.
When did Ian Holm play Frodo? Oh, was he the Frodo in the Return of the King cartoon? Or
now I'll look up Ian Holm. Now you go on your facts, and I'll keep looking up this stuff.
But I'm out. I'm like a little bit out of facts because I can't read some of these. Because I was too drunk on trivia. You know,
it's too much. You know, when you
it was like 11:30 at night on a Tuesday.
Here's what I really want. I want Christopher Lee's opinion of this movie. That's what I really want. Christopher Lee, you know, personal friend of Tolkien, the guy that was like, knew him and was told by him, you should play Gandalf. That's what I want. Oh, sad. Let's have a moment. Ian Holm died in 2020, and I did not know about it.
Oh,
thank you for the moment. We did it together. I'm looking for when he played Frodo. I see a lot of Bilbo. He did play God in a movie called Water Baby, so you know there's that.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah, the director Ralph Bakshi, wild dude. He did a movie, Fritz the Cat, I told you about, X-rated cartoon. I think it might be the only like X-rated cartoon that went to theaters ever. He did a movie in '77 called Wizards, followed up by Lord of the Rings. That's kind of what gave him the traction to do it. He did a really weird movie which has like Brad Pitt in it called Cool World. It's sort of like an adult version of Who Framed Roger Rabbit. He did some other ones, but I think Cool World is kind of the end of his run as people funding his movies. But like they're lauded for, he has some great animation in his stuff, but he has this weird filmography.
Everything about this movie is so weird. All right, it's so weird. I'll tell you, most of these facts are actually like, this person was in this movie with this other person who was in this other movie with a completely separate person. Isn't that crazy? No, it's not crazy. It's not crazy that Jim was in the movie with Todd, and Todd was in this other movie with Kevin, and Kevin was in a movie with somebody not related to any of them. That's just normal. That's like, I was in a room with somebody once, Cody. That was in a room with someone else. That was in a room with a guy named Greg.
Oh yeah.
Put that on my headstone. That's the best fun fact to be in my life ever, right there.
Yeah.
According to these people, I said these facts were all gems. They're all garbage now. Okay, I hate them all.
Yeah.
They're all about John Hurt, who has like 300 acting credits. He has so
Right.
much. It's like, yes, he's been in a lot. He was in Harry Potter, and he knew a guy that was he knew Anthony Daniels, who was in Star Wars. That does not count as a fun fact.
The director did work on I think the original Spider-Man cartoon. So that's fun. In the late 60s.
That is fun. That's more fun than all these facts combined. These facts suck.
Yeah.
Some dude, the guy who played Elrond died.
Oh,
Is that a fun fact, Cody? IMDb thinks so.
I'm not having a good time.
Gosh, this IMDb's goofs. You can't goofs. They're saying Ahriman is a goof. It's not a goof. It's bad directing. All right, that's what it is. All right. Okay. All right. Okay. They say, okay, Galadriel, when she introduces her husband, what does she say? What does she say his name is? Ready? Say it. Go.
Oh, Jeff.
This is claiming she says Celeborn when his name is Celeborn. Here's the thing. Peter Jackson doesn't even say his name. So is that really a goof, or is that just people disagree on how this is pronounced?
I don't know. I'm out of juice.
Cody,
this
movie sucks.
So I take it you would not recommend it.
I would not. Will I ever watch it again? Maybe. It's such a wild.
I don't think
trip.
I can recommend it. Despite the highs, there's too many lows. I can't.
It's so low. It's so many times where it's like you're watching this animation and they're so weird. Okay, I'll tell you this. We'll just talk about the animation, which people are like, a masterpiece of animation. That's what it says in the trailer. All right, let's talk about the fact that for a solid 45 seconds, Elrond's head and arms move and his clothes do not move one, just not even an inch, not even a little bit. They are rock solid. And then the next scene, Tiffany's like, his clothes are moving now. And I was like, yeah. And his head and arms are not moving. It's just his clothes moving. All right. So there's so much of the animation where they're like, oh, this person, they're moving, but their cape, not moving. And it's like, you can't.
Here's what I think this movie is. This is what I think it is. This was the first whack at a big studio production of Lord of the Rings. Right? And it didn't go well, but it was all people had for years. Fast forward 30 years, we've got a great Lord of the Rings trilogy that won all the Academy Awards and was a good adaptation as a movie. So now it looks foolish. But if you were a super nerd for Lord of the Rings and this was all you had, I think it'll do. And that's why it has a cult following. And that's it. Now, we live in the future, right?
Yeah.
There is no reason to spend 2 hours watching this when you could spend 3 hours watching any of the Lord of the Rings movies. You know?
I mean, you're right.
Especially with that's where I'm at.
Here's the real question. Okay. So there were people that were like, this is good. It's not good because they didn't finish it, but it's good animation. It's good voice acting. It's good storytelling. Those people are dumb and they're liars, but they would say it, I'm sure, for a long time. Then we got, in the early 2000s, we got the Peter Jackson trilogy, a masterpiece, all right? And now what's about to happen, Cody? We're about to get hit with the most expensive TV show ever made in the history of the planet Earth by Amazon, doing the exact same story, okay? Are we about to get hit with now, as fans of that own like all these, well, you don't have all the cool collector editions, but I got like all the cool collector editions of the Lord of the Rings movies. Am I about to now get smacked across the face with Amazon's rendition that just clowns out Peter Jackson's trash movies?
Here's my question. Wait, hold on. You're saying the Amazon stuff's going to be better than the Peter Jackson stuff?
I'm just saying that 20 years after this movie came out, people were sitting there like, this is a great movie. And then Peter Jackson just dunked on him. He dunked him into another dimension, Cody, all right? And now I'm like, oh my gosh, is Amazon about to do that? Because here's the thing. The Lord of the Rings, if you were going to be like, we want to tell the whole story of Lord of the Rings, it works best as like a long super high budget like TV show where you can do like hour and a half long episodes and have basically an unlimited budget, which is something Amazon is fully capable of. But who's not capable of it is like Lionsgate or whoever did the Lord of the Rings movies for Peter Jackson. Because they just don't get that money.
Here's the thing. First off, Amazon isn't doing Lord of the Rings books. They're doing stories from Lord of the Rings. Like, so they're going to be drawn from the Silmarillion. They'll be doing prequel stories of people. And, you know, they're not doing Fellowship, Two Towers, Return of the King. And as so far as what I've seen in the reporting. So we may see an Aragorn story, but it's probably going to be him as Strider beforehand, right?
Yeah. When he's just a baby.
When he's just a live, thick-thighed boy. So there's that. Here's what you said. What you said made me think of how I feel about the James Bond movies. I saw Casino Royale, so now everything before that kind of just sucks. Like so when people are like, "No, you gotta watch Sean Connery," I'm like, "Yeah, but I hate this." And I know that they're very different movies. Like now that I understand the history of James Bond or whatever, I still don't like the Sean Connery, all of them. But I can appreciate that some people like the fun, campy version of James Bond, like the fun, misogynist, campy. Wasn't life better when like men could rule the world without consequence? You know, male fantasy, whatever. It's fine. Yeah. But having seen what they did with Casino Royale, it's like, you know, that stuff, maybe it's fun for you, but it's not a good movie compared to what we're doing now. So I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Is it gonna be good? Look, you can only throw so much money at a problem. It doesn't necessarily make the movie good. If it's not the right creators, not the right writers, actor, you know, there's so much that went right for Peter Jackson's thing where he just had the right people working on it and committed to it for such a long time.
Yeah. Well,
is Amazon going to recapture the magic, the lightning in the bottle?
Probably not. Maybe. I don't know, because it depends on, I think if they do it where, you know, they're doing the stories and they find all these directors that want to do these kinds of different, if they basically go to all these different directors and they're like, pick a story from Lord of the Rings and you can, you know, we'll give you $10 million to tell it over an hour, you know, then I think it's going to be great. But I think the beginning, this movie is I will say this movie is the reason we have Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings. And I think all the studio executives that Peter Jackson went to before the ones that actually got it, and like, is it Warner Brothers or is it some, I can't remember who.
Is it Miramax? Or
Miramax, yeah.
Working title?
Yeah, it was Miramax.
I think Miramax.
Yeah. Because it's got the Weinstein thing, and you and I were like, oh no, when we were watching it. I remember that now. So, it's Miramax did it. But because he went to all these other places, and they were like, okay, you know, cool. Can you do it in one movie? And then he eventually whittled it down to 2 movies. And he's like, I won't do it in one, but I can get it down to 2. And then in that meeting, he was like, here's my pitch for these 2 movies. And they were like, cool, but we want 3 movies. You're not fitting this into 2 movies. And I'm convinced that they looked at this movie and they're like, put into 2 movies, this is a garbage story.
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
And they were like,
I mean, if this movie did the 3-hour runtime and they trimmed a little bit of the Shire stuff, they could have fit everything in. It still would have been like a rushed mess, but they would have finished it, you know?
Yeah.
And that would have been something.
It would have only made sense to people that read the books, though. You know, like,
oh yeah, like I said, I was overwhelmed by the amount of lore they were trying to cram in, and they only did 2 of the books. They didn't even finish it out.
Yeah, and they really just kind of like, I think it's because a lot of the stuff that, like, you can see a lot of decisions that like Peter Jackson made to kind of tighten up the story a little bit versus what they did. Because like one of the things is in the books, Saruman never joins with Sauron. He's his own thing. He wants the ring so that he can become Sauron, basically. Mm-hmm. Whereas Peter Jackson, I never feel like people don't like the story. The decision of him being like, nah, they join forces. You know, like that way there's one bad guy. Instead of dividing everyone's attention between all these, it's like Sauron is the bad guy, and Saruman is now a minion of him, you know, and all that. So
Peter Jackson made so many choices that weren't faithful to the book, but that served the narrative and the movie structure really well.
Yeah.
And because it works, people are fine with it. But I do, you know, there are the hardcore Tolkien fans that are like, no, I want to raw dog the books nonstop. Like that's what I want. I want to mainline the books. I want the pure books. Yeah. And it's hard because what I've heard about, it's been a long time since I read the books. What I've read, it's like, no, Tolkien wrote this as a mythology and a history, and these are archetypal characters, and it's a cycle. The whole history of Middle-earth is a cycle, just like history is a cycle in pizza. You know, so it's much less about what's Aragorn's inner struggle. It's like, no, Aragorn wants to get the throne, and that's what he's going for. Whereas in the movies, he's like, I can't turn back to those people, and I can't take the throne. I'm not worthy of the throne, you know, which as a movie structure is great because it's like, oh, it gives him something to strive for and to work toward. And you see him growing as a character and like growing into the throne. Whereas in the books, he's like, where's that sword so I can get that throne? Or I think he even has the sword in the books.
Yeah,
but, you know,
he
just
carries
like,
it around with him.
He's like, yeah, no, I'm just waiting for the right moment. I'm going to hop right in this throne. It's going to be great.
Well, so that's I was telling Tiffany that is like Aragorn is the best example of what I would say is like the genius level of the adaptation of Peter Jackson versus like something like this where they're like, okay, so what's Aragorn? Aragorn is the descendant of the last king. You know, his family line has passed down the shards of this sword as the mark so that they can prove who they are. Everyone knows who they are. He knows it's his responsibility to reclaim the throne when the time is right. He recognizes the time is right. It's happening. It's all kicking off. Like, he literally straight up threatens to kill a guard. He's like, if you draw this magic sword that only the King of Gondor is allowed to use, I will kill you with my bare hands. And, like, is super visceral in what he'll do to him. Where he, like, insinuates things like, if you draw the sword, you'll cease to exist. It will just destroy your being. You know, like, you don't have the power to hold this sword. Mm-hmm. Whereas Peter Jackson and his wife, you know, give some credit to what's-her-face?
Fran Walsh.
Fran. Because they're both super nerds. And you look at them and you're like, yeah, you're both super nerds. Mm-hmm. Thought, okay, Tolkien wrote him as the epitome of the hero character. That's what he's supposed to be. He's supposed to be the ultimate hero. You know, like he's this ranger out in the wilderness. He knows all this stuff. He has the magic sword. He's good. Any point where he can make the right choice, he always makes the right choice. That's who he is. That's his point in the story. And they were like, okay. So the idea of what the epitome of a hero character is has changed in 100 years, you know? So now the guy that's like, I know I'm supposed to be king and I'm going to do that, wouldn't necessarily be looked at as the best guy. They'd be like, well, what does he want to be king? What makes him? But the guy that's like, I'm not worthy to be king and is forced to become the king to save his people is the guy that's like,
right. Because then that gives meaning. That gives meaning to his struggle with Arwen, with the oath he makes to Boromir, with the decision to not take all of that builds into that story of him, the narrative of him making, you know, growing as a character and taking the throne.
Yeah. Which means that it's the same character written through the lens of 19 whatever versus 2000 whatever, you know?
Right.
So it's the same character with the different values of the time applied to it. Mm-hmm. And I was like, yeah. And you can really see with this one where they're like, oh yeah, no, you can kind of see like how Aragorn would have come across as kind of like an insufferable, self-righteous douche, you know, if they had just kept him straight from the book, you know?
Yeah. And despite them not having a lot of time, they did have plenty of time to just do Sam dirty. You know?
Oh God,
that's my thing.
They just
of all the things they decided to go all in on, they were just like, can we just dunk on Sam this whole time? We all read the books. We all hated Sam, right?
But Sam's supposed to be so awesome and like save Frodo all the time. Like Frodo's a freaking idiot. I hate Frodo. All right, he's stupid. Anybody that's like Frodo's the best. Frodo would have died in 45. Like he would have stepped outside his house and gotten killed without all these people. He is Mr. Magoo without the luck. Okay. So Sam is there to like pull him back from walking off the skyscraper and like throw down the plank as he's about to walk into lava, that kind of stuff. Like, dude, just anything to keep him from killing himself at any stage.
Oh man.
And then they're like, yeah, but Sam's like, I like elves a lot, so we're gonna make him go and like smush his face when he sees Galadriel. And it's like, no, you can't be like super nerds from the books and be like all this super faithful stuff and then do Sam that dirty. Oh gosh.
Don't watch this movie. But Jerry, hope you had a good time. Hope you enjoyed this.
The Hobbit one is good. The Hobbit one, it's not good. It's like a little kid movie. It's fine. It's fun, you know? And the dragon's sinister and all that. It's a little kid adventure movie. Watch the Hobbit animated one if you want to watch an animated Lord of the Rings story, all right? The Middle Earth.
I don't remember enjoying the Return of the King animated one, so...
I don't remember that one. I just remember the Hobbit one.
I told you there's a song. Frodo of the Nine Fingers. Here's what you do. You go to YouTube, search Frodo of the Nine Fingers song, watch that and be like, oh yeah, no, this is a hard pass. I don't need to watch this whole movie. That's what I recommend. I do recommend everyone Google that, because that's a trip. It's like, oh yeah, things were bad in the 70s. Like, movies weren't as good.
I mean,
you know,
you're right. Their movies weren't as good. There's no good movies from the 70s, right?
That's true.
Name one good movie.
Garbage. All right, utter. Francis Ford Coppola, idiot. Who else?
You don't even like Francis Ford Coppola.
How dare you, sir? I watched that man murder an ox.
Yeah, you did.
When was the last time you got to watch a real animal die on screen? You can thank Frank Coppola. I just gave him a new nickname, all right? Frankie Coppola.
There you go.
That's it. We're tight.
I mean, I've watched a lot of hunting shows, so I feel like that, you know.
Not the same.
I watched somebody shoot a pig in the head and be like, that's not good practice. Don't do that. Don't shoot an animal in the head, Cody. That's bad. Because you're going to miss. You're going to shoot them like in the ear, and then they just don't have an ear. You got to go for the lungs or the heart. All right, Cody, that's good practice.
I don't practice. I don't practice. I only perform. Who said that? Don't even warn. Chance the Rapper. That's who said it. All right. That's it. Don't watch this movie, please.
What would you grade it?
D+.
Oh,
look,
D+.
It has some redeeming. Look, if Rotten Tomatoes is listening, my scale of a 70 or higher is good, which I think my scale is probably more of like a C 75 or higher is good. Whatever. This movie has enough that it's not an absolute failure. Like, there are some cool vibes to it. Most of it is bad. Like, D+ is a bad grade, I would say. But it's a plus. All right? That's where what'd you give it?
Oh, I'm trying to think what an F would be. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, that's my thing. Is the F... Okay, here's my question on our scale. Okay, is an F, like, the worst movie we've seen? Or is it an F, like, a trash movie made for $12 by a bunch of film students at a community college, you know?
I would say F. F stands for failure. I would say an abject failure. Where, like, this thing didn't do anything for me. Like, it was straight bad.
Okay, so like Her. Okay.
Oh, fighting words, sir.
I'll give it a D because it didn't. I mean, it did make money, I think, from what I saw. Oh yeah. Oh, Cody, you fool! You thought this didn't.
I mean,
make
I guess
money.
when you give a movie $2 million, it's bound to make.
Hey, you fool! It said 4 million estimated at least on there, and then it made 30. Yeah.
There you go.
Its opening weekend was 620,000.
And then the director was like, "Yeah, no, I'm not doing that again." They're like, "Oh, so we're just not finishing it," you know. But he said he had a really rough time with because, like I said, the guy his friend who was like, "Hey, let me make this," he's like, "All right, I'll buy the script." Promptly got fired. So it was other people were his bosses for this movie, and I think if it was different, maybe he would have finished it out. I would have been very curious to because they burned through 2/3 of the material in the first movie. Like, does that mean Return of the King would have been another 2-hour movie, or would Return of the King have been 90 minutes in and out, or
no, it would have been 2 hours. and they would have spent the last 30 minutes in the Shire, just like they do in the book. And it's like, this should have been cut out or something like.
Yeah. That's all I've got for you. Don't watch this movie. Thank you for listening. You can rate, share, and review us on Apple Podcasts, wherever you find podcasts. Also, you can hit us up on the socials, and you can make us watch more bad movies, or you can be a good person and point us to some movies that are good that maybe aren't on our radar. All right? That's what a good... Jerry, you did us dirty, all right? For the last time, all right? At Opinion Havers, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Until next time, watch movies.
And have opinions.
Man, Jerry's going to sue us, and I'm ready for it.
We're going to have a defamation case on our hands right now.
I've got my closing statement ready. We're going to obviously represent ourselves.
We're just going to watch the...
It's going to be on Judge Judy. Jerry Springer's got a court show now, right?
I don't know.
There will be a brawl of sorts, and there will be a guy in a wizard hat in the brawl.
Can we get, was it Master Supreme or whatever, that guy that runs for mayor of New York all the time? What's that guy's name? He wears a hat on, a shoe on his head, boot on his head.
Oh, yeah. What is that guy's name? He'd be great.
He would be... Yes. He would be our character. He'd have to be our character witness or something.
I'll have to drop a link to that when we send out the episode.
Oh, yeah. He would probably do it. He's a good guy, you know? Oh, man. This movie sucked.